So yesterday we went over readings 1, 2, and you guys were to do reading 3 on your own. So we filled in all of these answers in class and on the video yesterday. And then your job was to answer these questions. So looking at reading number 3, the question asks, what is the setting of this poem? Where does it take place? So as we look at the poem, it starts out by talking about nature. We're talking about leaves, dawn. So this poem, the setting, your answer here should be that your setting is nature. You don't necessarily need a time because even though it mentions dawn, it's not directly saying that this poem all takes place at sunrise, it just kind of mentions it. So somewhere out in nature, outdoors is good. Our next question, what are some things in nature that are literally gold or yellow when they are just new or beginning? So we want to think about the things that at the beginning of their life cycle are literally colored yellow. Some of the things that come to mind for me are a sunrise or even the very beginnings of a sunset. Photographers call the hour right before sunset golden hour and the hour right after sunrise golden hour. So it's cast this pretty little gold light. This is a willow tree. So willow trees have these pretty little yellow buds that at the very beginning of spring start. And brand new leaves often are tinted yellow because they don't quite have all the pigmentation that more grown-up adult leaf would have. So another one came to my mind this morning, the very beginnings of fall. So when the leaves start turning yellow and orange and red, you just see those little like pockets of leaves on the trees. So some things in nature that are literally gold. We have the buds of new leaves, willow trees. We have the golden light at the beginning of sunrise and sunset. We have the beginnings of fall with changing leaves. So all of those things are yellow when they're just beginning. What does her early leaves of flower refer to? So we want to think about when in a leaf cycle is a leaf a flower. This isn't true of all leaves, but there are some leaves that begin like this. So dogwoods come to mind, cherry blossoms. This is usually like a 5-day window of time. So you don't have a lot of time if you want to see a pretty flowering tree. I've thought for years about getting a flowering tree, but the time it would take to grow one and then the time that you'd actually have to enjoy it is very small. People go to Washington, D.C. to see the cherry blossoms in the spring, but you really have to time it out because you only have a brief window and it might not even correspond with a weekend. So you might have to take a midweek trip. So what does her early leaves of flower refer to? Flowering trees that get flower buds before leaves. There are some trees in downtown Butler that line the streets, and when you drive underneath them, it's just like all of these beautiful white and pink flowers. But then once the leaves start to push it out, all of those flowers fall to the ground and they all kind of just like rot and get trampled on the ground. But it happens every year, just in a brief little window. How long do these gold things and flowers last? Quote the line that answers the question. So we're looking for a time over in the poem. And it tells us that her early leaves of flower, but only so an hour. In the poem, it doesn't, it rhymes with flower, so it's nice and easy. But what it's mentioned, it's not literally talking about like a 60-minute period of time. It's talking about a very short window. Like the flowering trees, really 5 days. That's not really an hour. Sunrise and sunset truly is about an hour. But what it's trying to say is a very brief window of time. In this part, describe what's happening in this line, then leaf subsides to leaf. I have on here illustrate, because when this was on paper, I had kids actually draw it. But here I want you to kind of picture the imagery of the word subsides means to be replaced by something that is more normal, to go down to a lesser or normal level. So this word insinuates that the leaf that replaces the other leaf is less than the one that was original. So we had talked about these pretty little flowers, and then those leaves subside, become more normal. So they get replaced by regular old green leaves. They push them out, and like I said, all of those other little flower petals, they fall to the ground and usually kind of get trampled and rot. But what's left are just regular old green leaves. So what's happening in this line, the pretty flowers get replaced by typical leaves. The one falls off and they leave a leaf in the replacement. Yesterday we talked about Eden, the Garden of Eden, and the allusion here is to the Bible. And Eden sank to grief whenever Adam and Eve sinned. So a snake who is representing Satan tempts Eve with an apple and gets her to eat it, and then she gives it to Adam, and together they get kicked out of the Garden of Eden. So they lose paradise. They were pretty much allowed to live in heaven forever, and then they lost it for an apple. You couldn't have gone for a chocolate truffle or something, but it's not worth it for an apple. So they get kicked out and they lose paradise altogether. How can dawn be described as gold? I don't want you to overthink this question. Literally, how is dawn yellow colored? As we look at pictures of dawn, you can see here that it casts that beautiful yellow light. This is probably what Ponyboy and Johnny were seeing. So we have this pretty mist that's tinged with silver and gold. You see this dirt road. It's casting a yellow light on it. So this one, dawn, casts a yellow light on everything. And then things in the poem that are literally gold, the gold things that don't stick around. We have dawn. Be careful that you don't put sunset, because the poem doesn't make any mention of dusk or sunset. Flowers, new leaves, and it mentions that nature's first green is gold, and it tells us that that isn't able to be held, so that one would work as well. So those would be your answers for this middle section. Just make sure that you understand all of those pieces. And then our last section here, we have what are some words, images, or emotions that you associate with gold? Are these associations mostly positive or negative? So once the kids have said in the past, usually jewelry comes up, gold jewelry, gold rings. We typically think of gold as a marker of wealth, money. We used to have the gold standard that backed up our paper money. Sometimes people mention Trump because his apartment in Manhattan was gold plated pretty much everywhere, including a gold toilet, which is real gross. But the point of that is to signal to people that he has money. Emotions. There's a song that you may remember from elementary school. It's make new friends, but keep the old. One is silver and the other's gold. So the old friends are really valuable and worthwhile, worthy. All of those different things would be good. You can list literal things that are gold that come to mind. Any of those would be good. And as we look over that list, all of these different ideas are positive. Trump's toilet. It's not really a positive thing, but he's trying to signal his wealth. What does gold represent in this poem? So does it represent jewelry, wealth, money, value? Not really. So we want to think about what's happening in the poem. So we have these gold things that last for just a short period of time, and then they go away. So in the poem, gold things are beautiful things. Nothing gold can stay. No beautiful thing. They don't last. So they don't last very long. So gold things in this poem are really beautiful. You can even say pure things that just don't stick around. So what are some non-literal gold things in life that don't stay? Some ones that have popped up in years past are things like childhood, kind of that pure, innocent time. believing in Santa and being taken care of, and having people cook for you, that kind of stuff doesn't stick around. There's a phrase, babies don't keep, like newborn babies. They don't stay tiny and cuddly and sleepy all the time. Eventually, they grow up and they get attitudes. They turn into my little three-nager who's constantly yelling at me. They turn into teenagers who don't want anything to do with their parents anymore. So newborns and babies, they don't keep. Other things that don't stick around. Sometimes grandparents come up, that pure, wonderful relationship you have with your grandparents. Just by nature of being grandparents tend to be older whenever you're born, and you don't get to keep them as long as we'd like. I always like when people answer Christmas morning, that feeling of they come downstairs and there are all the presents underneath the tree, and it's exciting, but they don't last very long. The excitement of getting new things. Mentioned even in my earlier class, like the excitement of getting a new cell phone. It's like, oh, I'm going to put all my new apps on it, and oh, it's so cool, it's so new electronics. But then very quickly, you're like, oh, I need a new one. I think I got this one last Thanksgiving, and I'm like, I should probably get a new phone sometime soon. It doesn't last very long. The butterflies of new relationships, where you're just like so excited because everything is new and everything is your first, and that doesn't stick around very long either. So those are ones that typically pop up, and you're welcome to add your own as well if you think of something that is worthwhile and pure that doesn't last very long. So what's the theme of this poem? This one kind of comes directly out and tells you. So right down here at the bottom where it says nothing gold can stay, that is the theme of this poem, but what does that mean? So what it means is that the beautiful and pure things in life aren't here for very long. They don't last. That's kind of depressing, right? But we can think about how we can apply this to our life, and I think part of this poem makes you more appreciative of the things that are beautiful and wonderful that don't last very long. Can you value your grandparents more? Can you pay them a visit? Can you savor that Christmas morning and maybe not open all of your presents right away and thanks, Mom, and run upstairs? Can you, like for me as a parent, can I slow down and value the time that I have with my little toddler when he still wants to cuddle with me, because I know that is a brief window of time that I have with him. So part of this poem is slowing down and savoring those things that we know are not going to be around very long. I have a couple pictures here. We always notice beauty when things are new. That the very beginning of spring, where we're so excited because it's finally not going to be ugly and gross like it is right now. We always get excited about brand new leaves and look, my rose bush is budding and all that, but that doesn't stick around very long. Same thing with fall. It's beautiful at first, and then eventually all the leaves fall off and everything's just like brown and gross. And then you're like, ugh, I have to rake these leaves. Brand new snow. I know when it snowed last week, I was so excited because we just got a new roof on our house over the summer, and I was like, oh, I can take a really pretty picture. But I wanted to make sure that I took it before like all the neighborhood dogs and cats and stuff started walking across my snow and ruining it. So that nice fresh coat of snow before the plow makes it all dirty and gross. We always notice those things when things are new, but our appreciation of it and the beauty of it doesn't last. So those leaves get eaten up by bugs, and all the leaves fall off and they get trampled, and our snow gets dirty from snow plows. We always are really excited on the first nice warm day of spring, and then by summer when it starts to get hot, we're like, oh, it's so hot, I can't wait till it's cold again. Like we're just never really satisfied, right? So that's kind of the theme of this poem. Those things that are meaningful, that are beautiful, they just don't last very long. So you're welcome to take the same answers that I have here and put them in your file, and you can submit it. And because I'm kind of offering you the answers to this, I'm just going to grade it on completion. So did you fill in the answers or not? And if you have any questions on the poem, reach out and ask me. But this concept of goldness in the outsiders is going to be really important. It becomes a big symbol. So I just want to make sure that you understand it thoroughly. So you can submit that and reach out if you need anything.